If you've been looking for somewhere quiet to rest your mind tonight, you've found it. This is a narration inside the hidden life of the human mind. No rush, no noise, just the slow, quiet science of what lives beneath your thoughts. If nights like this help you rest, a like or a subscribe means more people find their way here too, one quiet soul at a time. Whenever you're ready, we'll begin. There is a universe inside you, not a figure of speech, not a poetic way of saying something simpler, an actual, living, shifting landscape, operating right now as you lie here, doing what it has always done without announcement or effort. Most of us move through our days without thinking much about how the mind works. We think a thought. We feel a feeling. We recognize a face. And all of it feels so immediate, so obvious, that we rarely pause to ask how any of it actually happens. But when you do pause and ask, the answers are genuinely remarkable. Tonight we are going to spend some time in that space between asking and knowing, between the familiar sense of being aware and the quieter science of what awareness actually is. You do not need to take notes. You do not need to stay awake to absorb any of this. Everything we explore tonight is already part of you. Gentle illuminations of something you have always carried. Consider what is happening right now, in this moment, as you listen. Your brain is processing sound, converting pressure waves into language and meaning without any effort on your part. It is monitoring your breathing, adjusting your temperature, tracking the position of your body in the dark. It is holding, somewhere in its vast networks, the name of someone you love, the memory of something that comforted you once, the faint outline of something you have been meaning to do. All of this simultaneously, without your permission or your management. The brain runs on roughly 20 watts of power, less than a dim light bulb. And yet it holds approximately 86 billion neurons, each capable of thousands of individual connections. The number of possible configurations in a single human brain exceeds the number of atoms in the observable universe. That is not poetry. That is the mathematics of what you are carrying inside an ordinary skull. And none of it requires your supervision. The mind does not need your worry or your oversight. It has been doing this work since long before you had words for any of it. Tonight, all you need to do is listen and let the science of what you already are move gently through you. We will begin at the beginning, with awareness itself, with the strange, luminous fact of being here and knowing it. Each idea tonight is simply a door, quietly opened. Each pause a moment to breathe. There is no destination, no place you need to arrive. The day is already behind you. Whatever it asked of you, you gave it. That debt is paid. What remains is this: the soft, enormous quiet of a mind beginning to rest, and the wonder of all that lives inside it. Here is something most people have never been told. Your conscious mind, the internal voice, the sense of being present, is only a small fraction of what your brain is doing right now. Beneath that familiar surface, vast processing is happening without your knowledge. Sensory data is being filtered. Patterns are being matched against everything you have ever experienced. Emotional responses are being prepared. Decisions are forming in circuits you will never directly observe. And by the time awareness arrives to take ownership of a choice, that choice has often already been made. Brain imaging studies have captured this directly. Neural activity predicting a decision can be detected seconds before the person reports feeling like they have decided anything at all. The wave breaks on the shore of consciousness, but it began forming far out at sea. This is not unsettling. It is something stranger and more interesting than that. The mind is not one thing, but many layers, many systems, running simultaneously. A deep ocean, where the surface is only the last expression of movements happening far below. And the more you understand those depths, the less mysterious they feel. They are not foreign. They are not working against you. They are you. The parts of you that operate so smoothly, you have never needed to thank them. Think about catching a ball. In the fraction of a second available, the brain is calculating arc, speed, and spin. It is coordinating dozens of muscles in precise sequence. It is predicting where the ball will be before it arrives. None of this reaches conscious thought. None of it needs to. If it did, the ball would be long gone before approval arrived. The unconscious mind is the most practiced part of you, faster, more efficient, holding thousands of hours of accumulated experience that your conscious self has long since forgotten having. Psychologists sometimes describe it as a vast, silent library. Every face ever seen, every sensation ever felt, held in the stacks, retrievable under the right conditions. Consciousness is the reading room, small, well lit, able to hold only a few things at once. But the library is always there, working, reorganizing, making connections you did not ask it to make. And sometimes, in the quiet moments just before sleep, offering something up, an answer to a question you had stopped trying to solve. Consider recognizing a face. You do it in less than 1/10 of a second. Before conscious thought has time to form a sentence, the brain has already made its assessment. Trustworthy or unfamiliar, known or unknown, safe or uncertain. Deep in the temporal lobe, the fusiform face area handles this with remarkable precision. It is so specialized that people with damage to this region, a condition called prosopagnosia, can see every feature of a face clearly, yet fail to recognize even their closest family members. The face is there, the recognition is not. What we experience as simply seeing someone we know is the output of a complex, dedicated, deeply practiced process. One the brain performs so automatically that it feels like nothing at all. There is something quietly remarkable in that. The most human of abilities, knowing the people we love, carried out in the space between one heartbeat and the next. And the brain does not stop at identification. From those same first fractions of a second, it builds an entire social portrait, reading the micro-expressions that cross a face faster than deliberate thought, sensing the tension in a jaw, the warmth behind a smile, the way eyes move when someone is hiding something. All of this arrives as feeling rather than conclusion, a sense that something is off, a warmth towards someone you have just met, an inexplicable trust, or an inexplicable hesitation. This is intuition, not mysticism, just an older, faster intelligence built over millions of years of social living, communicating in the only language available to it, feeling. And even in a quiet room, your name alone can cut through ambient sound and land directly in your awareness. Researchers call this the cocktail party effect. Your name is neurologically unlike any other word. It is a direct line to the self. Let us talk about memory. Not just the fact of it, but the texture of it. The strange, beautiful, fundamentally unreliable poetry of it. Memory is not a recording device. It does not preserve events the way a camera preserves footage, fixed, frame perfect, unchanged. Memory is a reconstruction. Every time you remember something, the brain rebuilds it. It draws on fragments, some from the original experience, some from what you believed to be true at the time, some from how you have felt about that experience in the years since. And in that rebuilding, small distortions enter almost every time. Details shift, sequences blur. In some cases, entirely fabricated moments can feel as vivid and certain as anything real. Researchers have led people to remember in rich, confident detail things that never actually occurred. Not because they were lying, but because memory is alive and living things change. The past we carry is not a fixed archive. It is a story we retell, shaped by the teller, the moment of telling, and what we need the story to mean right now. The memories that feel most certain are not necessarily the most accurate. They are often simply the most rehearsed, rebuilt so many times that the reconstruction has quietly replaced whatever the original was. Two people can share the same afternoon and remember it entirely differently. Not because one of them is wrong, but because each was present in a different way, attending to different things, carrying different histories into the same moment. Memory is always autobiography, and the self changes, so the memory changes with it. This is not a flaw to be corrected. It is part of how the mind stays alive, capable of updating, of integrating new understanding, of making sense of growth. Among the senses, smell moves through the brain differently than all the others. While sight and sound travel along longer processing routes, scent connects almost immediately to the limbic system, the seat of emotion, the cradle of long-term memory. This is why a single fragrance can feel like a time machine. The smell of rain on warm pavement, a specific soap, a food cooking in a kitchen you have not entered in decades. These signals do not merely remind you of the past, they return you to it, emotionally, physically, in a way no photograph can fully replicate. Psychologists call this the Proust phenomenon, after the author who described with extraordinary precision the way a small cake dipped in tea could unspool an entire childhood. Decades of memory awakened by a single flavour. And scent works the other direction too. Fragrances present right now, subtle, unannounced, are continuously influencing mood and behaviour without any conscious awareness at all. Lavender has measurable effects on cortisol and heart rate. Citrus notes can sharpen alertness. The smell of something being cleaned activates tidier behaviour. None of this requires knowing the scent is there. The limbic system receives the message before the thinking brain has had a chance to ask what it means. The air is always speaking to us. We are always listening. We just rarely know it. Emotion shapes memory in a way that changes everything about how we hold the past. The moments we remember most clearly are almost always the ones that carried emotional weight. Not necessarily dramatic, but felt. The amygdala, an almond-shaped structure deep in the brain, acts as an emotional tag for experience. When the nervous system registers intensity, it signals the memory system. Hold on to this. Store it carefully. This is why we recall how we felt during a major event more clearly than the sequence of what happened. The emotion is the anchor. The facts are the tide. And it explains why time can feel elastic under strong emotion. The brain records more sensory detail per second, and that density, in retrospect, feels like duration. A few frightening seconds stretching into minutes. An evening of deep laughter disappearing in what feels like a single breath. Time is not fixed inside the mind. It expands and contracts with the weight of what we are experiencing. We are, at the deepest level, social creatures, and the brain reflects this completely. The systems that process faces, read emotions, track reputations, and navigate trust are vast networks, refined over millions of years of living closely together. Because for most of human history, understanding others was not a social skill. It was survival. And many of the mind's stranger tendencies make complete sense when viewed through this lens. Consider gossip. The brain treats social information, stories about others' behavior, their trustworthiness, their choices, with special priority. In studies, participants consistently recalled behavioral details about people far more reliably the neutral facts about the same individuals. Because knowing who could be trusted was survival information. The tribe was everything, and the brain built strong, reinforced pathways for exactly this kind of knowledge. The same logic explains the bystander effect. When we are alone and someone needs help, there is an almost immediate sense of personal responsibility. We act. There is no one else to defer to. But in a crowd, responsibility disperses. Each person assumes someone else will step forward, and in that diffusion, no one does. This has been replicated across decades of research. The more people present, the lower the chance any single one will intervene. But awareness of this effect changes it. People who understand the bystander effect are far more likely to act regardless of the crowd. The person who needs to act is often simply the one who noticed first. Human perception is also continuously shaped by what we have recently been thinking about. Psychologists call this priming, the way recent exposure to certain words or ideas can subtly tilt the thoughts and behaviors that follow, without any awareness of the influence. In one study, participants who encountered words associated with aging walked more slowly when they left the room. In another, people primed with the concept of libraries spoke more quietly in the adjoining space. The brain uses recently activated ideas as shortcuts, and in doing so, the environment quietly steers us in directions we never consciously chose. Awareness creates a small gap, and in that gap, something like genuine choice becomes possible. The body speaks continuously to the brain in ways we rarely pause to notice. Posture shapes mood. A body held upright and open shifts internal chemistry, influencing hormones, altering the depth of breathing, nudging the nervous system toward a state that feels more capable. A collapsed posture can reinforce fatigue, and the smile, even one not prompted by joy, can initiate a real cascade. Facial muscles send feedback signals to the brain. The brain interprets this as a sign that something is well. Small releases of dopamine and serotonin follow. The mood shifts slightly upward. The face is not only an output of inner states, it is also an input, a message the body sends back to itself. Touch carries similar power. The warmth of a hand placed on a shoulder can reduce perceived pain, not as distraction, but as a genuine shift in how the nervous system processes sensation. Physical contact triggers the release of oxytocin, a hormone associated with safety and bonding. In one study, couples who held hands through a painful experience not only reported less discomfort, their brain waves began to synchronize. Two nervous systems moving toward the same rhythm. We are not sealed-off systems navigating separately. We are permeable to one another. We influence each other's physiology constantly. And acts of genuine kindness move through the system in this same quiet way. helping others reduces cortisol, lowers blood pressure, and supports immune function. Not as a side effect, as a direct biological response to genuine generosity. Kindness is not merely a social grace. It is a form of self-care, so quiet, we rarely notice we are receiving its benefits, even as we give them away. There is also something called the spotlight effect that is worth understanding quietly. The tendency to believe that others are paying far more attention to us than they actually are. That small mistakes, a stumble, a mispronounced word, an awkward pause, are being closely watched and remembered by everyone who witnessed them. In reality, the people around us are far more occupied with their own inner experience than with monitoring ours. They have their own spotlight. It shines inward, not outward. The stumble you are still thinking about an hour later was, for almost everyone who saw it, forgotten within seconds. Understanding this can be quietly liberating. Space to make mistakes without catastrophizing. Space to try things that might not succeed. Space to be imperfect in public, which is, after all, the only way any of us ever learns anything. The mind that knows it is not constantly watched can move more freely. It can take the small risks that make a life interesting. It can be, more simply, itself. There is one more dimension to the social brain worth holding before we move on. Mirror systems run continuously in the background, simulating the felt states of people nearby, preparing responses that match what those systems detect. This is why shared laughter is so warm, why watching someone in pain makes us physically recoil, why yawning passes through a group like a slow, quiet wave. The yawn, remarkably, crosses species. Dogs catch yawns from their human companions, chimpanzees from other chimpanzees. It is one of biology's quietest signals of connection, a wordless synchrony that says, without any language at all, we are in this moment together. There is a moment in any long walk through knowledge when the facts begin to soften, when understanding stops being something you are collecting and becomes something you are simply recognizing. You may be moving through something like that now, not because we have said anything unfamiliar, but because what we have described, the social wiring, the emotional memory, the body that speaks back to the brain, is you. All of it, already present, already working. You have lived every one of these truths without being told they were truths. You have felt time stretch under real fear. You have caught a scent and been returned, suddenly, fully, to somewhere long ago. You have reached towards someone in pain and felt the distance between you shorten in a way that had nothing to do with thought. The science does not create these experiences. It simply gives them a name. And there is something genuinely restful in that. The sense that what you have always carried without explanation can, at last, be recognized as real. The mind, for all its complexity, is not a cold machine. It is warm. It is relational, shaped by love and loss, and the particular quality of light on a particular afternoon that you will carry without knowing why for the rest of your life. Memory is not storage, it is meaning. Perception is not a window, it is a translation. And consciousness, that luminous awareness of being here, now, in this body, on this night, is not something the science has fully explained. Not really. Not yet. Perhaps the most honest thing neuroscience has offered is this. The more carefully we study the brain, the clearer it becomes that we have barely begun. Each discovery opens several doors. Each answer carries new questions, deeper and quieter than the ones before. What is consciousness exactly? Not the mechanisms, but the experience, the felt quality of being present. The reason there is something it is like to be you, rather than nothing at all. No one knows. Not yet. And there is something freeing in that admission. The mind is not a solved equation. It is an ongoing, open mystery. One that every human being who has ever lived has carried without resolution. You are in very good company. What science has given us is not a complete map. It is a better lantern. More of the territory is visible now than it was 50 years ago, more than it was a decade ago. And still, the deep interior of the mind remains largely in shadow, not threateningly, but invitingly, the way all the most interesting places do. Tonight you have travelled through a small portion of that territory. You have moved through the architecture of awareness, the unconscious depths, the speed of recognition, through the living, shifting, reconstructed landscape of memory, through the social wiring that makes us human in the most fundamental sense. And now the walk is beginning to slow. The pace is changing. The questions are softening into something that does not need an answer. This is exactly how it should be. The mind has received what it needed tonight. Now it is ready for something different. Not more information, just presence, just rest, just the quiet of being here without needing to be anywhere else at all. You are not a fixed thing. This is perhaps the gentlest truth we have touched tonight. Your brain changes with every experience, every new skill, every conversation that moved you, every night of rest, every morning that follows. New pathways form, existing ones strengthen or quietly fade. The architecture shifts continuously in ways you will never directly observe, but will always, on some level, feel. Psychologists call this neuroplasticity, but the word does not quite capture the feeling of it. The feeling is more like relief. The knowledge that you are not locked in, that nothing you have been is necessarily the limit of what you will become. that the mind at every age retains the genuine capacity to change. Studies have shown that long-term meditation practice increases cortical thickness in regions linked to attention and self-regulation. That learning a new instrument changes the motor cortex. That mastering a second language reshapes the way the brain processes all language. These are not metaphors. They are measurable, structural changes in physical tissue. The brain responding to experience by literally rebuilding itself. Every skill you have learned has left a physical trace. Every person who has moved you has shaped, in some real way, how your nervous system responds to the world. Every night of sleep has done its quiet work, consolidating, connecting, preparing you for tomorrow. You are not separate from your history, but you are not finished by it either. Some people who pass through great difficulty emerge changed in ways they did not anticipate, more connected to what matters, more awake to ordinary beauty, carrying a kind of earned tenderness toward life that was not quite there before. The research calls this post-traumatic growth, not a prescription, not a requirement placed on anyone who is struggling, but evidence that transformation is possible, that the mind, given enough time and care, can find meaning in almost anything, and that meaning, once found, becomes its own form of healing. Purpose too leaves its mark on the body. People who carry a clear personal sense of why they are here tend to move through the years differently. Lower inflammation, greater resilience, a steadier relationship with difficulty. The body, it seems, responds to meaning. A meaning does not have to be large. It can be as simple as tending something, a relationship, a practice, a small creative devotion pursued with real attention. The decision to show up one more time for something that matters to you. The body registers all of it. All of it counts. There is something researchers did not expect when they began studying gratitude. They expected to find effects on mood. They were not prepared for what they actually found. Measurable reductions in cortisol, the hormone most directly associated with chronic stress, in people who regularly practiced noticing what they were grateful for. Improvements in sleep quality, tracked over time. Positive shifts in immune markers. Increased activity in brain regions associated with warmth, empathy, and social connection. None of this required elaborate practice. It required only a brief, deliberate turning of attention for a moment in a quiet space toward what was present and good, toward what existed alongside the difficulty, toward the ordinary facts that were worth something, even now. A moment of genuine noticing, that is all. And the nervous system responds, not because it has been tricked, but because it has been reminded that not everything is threat, that safety exists, that beauty is real even here, even now, even in this ordinary room. A grateful thought, held quietly for a few seconds, can move through the body like a slow tide coming in. Reliable, real. It does not fix everything, but it reminds the body that not everything needs fixing. You do not need to have done everything perfectly today. You do not need to have been enough in every direction at once. You were here. You tried. That is enough. That has always been enough. Right now, your body is doing something extraordinary. Without your direction, without your effort, simply because you are alive. Your heart is moving blood through 60,000 miles of vessels. Your lungs are exchanging gases in amounts too precise for any conscious mind to manage. Your immune system is conducting 1,000 quiet negotiations. And your brain is beginning, now, gently, to let its activity soften. All of this without your management, without your oversight, without any effort on your part at all. That forgetting is a gift. You do not need to manage any of this. You never did. There is a kind of intelligence in the body that operates entirely outside of language. It knows how to heal a small wound without being told. It knows when something is wrong before the conscious mind has assembled the evidence. It knows, right now, that the day is over and rest is what comes next. We call this instinct, a gut feeling, but it is simply the body's intelligence arriving ahead of words. Sleep, when it comes, is one of the body's most generous acts. During its deepest stages, the brain clears metabolic waste, a process that only happens during rest. The glymphatic system opens. Cerebrospinal fluid moves through neural tissue. The biological residue of a day's thinking is gently washed away. Memory consolidation happens here too. The experiences of the day are reviewed and sorted. What proved important is strengthened and linked to existing knowledge. What did not matter is quietly released. Connections are drawn between things that seemed unrelated while you were awake. The sleeping brain is not idle. It is doing some of its most important work. And dreaming, that strange, private world, is part of this. Dreams may serve as emotional processing, a space where feelings too large for the waking day can be worked through, a place where the mind makes leaps that logic would dismiss too quickly. Some of the most genuinely creative insights in human history arrived in dreams. Problems that resisted weeks of conscious effort dissolved overnight. Because the dreaming mind is freed completely from the need to be rational, in the landscape of sleep, the mind is at its most inventive, its most honest, its most itself. So as you drift toward that edge now, you are not disappearing, you are continuing. In a quieter register, but no less present, no less you. Your body right now is heavier than it was an hour ago. Not in a bad way, in the way of something settling, something finding its place. The shoulders perhaps have dropped a little. The jaw has softened. The hands have opened. This is the nervous system doing what it does when it is finally allowed to, moving from readiness toward rest. Heart rate slows. Breathing deepens on its own. The body is saying, quietly and without words, we are safe. We can put this down now. And it is true. You are safe. The day is over. Nothing requires your vigilance right now. Sleep is not downtime. It is the most restorative thing you can do for yourself right now. The body knows this. It has always known this. And you are already moving toward it, without effort, without trying. Simply by being here, in the dark, letting the body follow its own deep knowing. The mind, as you drift, is still doing something. Even now, in the narrowing space between waking and sleep, connections are forming. The day is being folded quietly into the longer story of your life. This is what the brain does in the hypnagogic state, the threshold. Images may form without being called. A thought may arrive fully formed, as if someone else thought it first and passed it to you. Sounds may seem to come from somewhere close. This is normal. This is the mind beginning its nightly transition. The gatekeeper stepping back, the deeper layers rising. You do not need to direct any of it. Just notice and let it pass. There is a quality of thinking in these late hours that is different from the thinking of the day. The edges are softer. Ideas arrive without urgency. Feelings surface without demanding action. The mind may drift toward old memories, toward people who are no longer nearby, toward versions of yourself that no longer exist, but are somehow still present. This is the mind doing what it has always done, making meaning from time, finding the threads that connect the many different selves you have been. You have been many things. A child who did not yet know what they would become. A person learning something for the very first time. Someone in the middle of something difficult. Someone on the other side of it, looking back. All of those are still here, held in the warm, vast architecture of everything you have lived. None of them gone, all of them still quietly speaking. There is a particular quality of late night thinking that is different from the thinking of the day. The rational mind loosens its grip. Ideas arrive sideways, not through the front door of logic, but through a window you forgot was open. Psychologists have noted that people are sometimes more honest in these late hours. The social masks loosen. The performance of the day quiets. what remains is closer to the simple truth of things, not the analyzed truth, not the curated version, just what we actually feel and know and want. In these hours, the mind may also revisit unfinished things, not with urgency, just with a gentle, persistent noticing. The conversation left incomplete, the question held for too long. You can acknowledge these things, give them a moment, and then let them rest until morning. They do not need resolution tonight. They only needed to be seen. There is also something the dreaming mind does that the waking mind cannot. It connects things that have no obvious connection. It places an emotion from 3 years ago alongside a detail from this afternoon and finds a relationship between them that conscious thought would never have noticed. This is why sleep is not just rest, it's integration. The dreaming mind is not replaying the day, it is weaving it, threading new experience into the existing fabric of everything you know and feel and remember. And sometimes what emerges from that weaving is something genuinely new, a perspective you did not have before, a clarity that was not available while you were awake. Many people have experienced this, waking with a solution that eluded them for days, or with a feeling of having worked something through without knowing quite when or how. The mind, trusted to rest, often returns with the answer it could not find through effort alone. So the letting go tonight is not passive, it is generous. You are giving the mind the conditions it needs to do its best work. And in the morning you will carry something back. Not always in words, sometimes just a feeling, a mood, a small, quiet knowing that something has shifted, that something has been tended to. That is the gift of sleep, not only the rest it gives the body, but the work it does quietly and faithfully on your behalf every single night, whether you remember it or not. There is something worth knowing about the hours ahead. The brain, as you sleep, will move through several cycles, each one lasting roughly 90 minutes. In each cycle, different kinds of rest happen. In the lighter stages, the mind is close to the surface, easily recalled to waking. This is where dreams are often vivid and strange. In the deeper stages, the body does its repair work. Growth hormone is released. Tissue is restored. The immune system runs its most thorough protocols. And in the transitions between cycles, those brief, barely perceptible moments of near waking, the brain checks in, registers that it is safe, that the environment is as it should be, and then lets itself fall back into depth. You may not notice these moments, but they are there. The brain maintaining its own continuity through the night. And in the morning, after a full night of these cycles, something will be different. Not dramatically, not in a way you can always name, but something will have settled. Something will be clearer. Something that felt large and tangled yesterday will feel slightly more manageable in the light. Not because the problem has changed, but because the mind that holds it has rested, has processed, has found in the dark some small reorganization that makes the weight a little easier to carry. This is the promise the night makes every time. Not that everything will be solved, but that you will face tomorrow with a mind that has had the chance to tend to itself. And that is enough, more than enough. It always has been. So let the night do its work now. You have done yours. The day is behind you. The morning is ahead. And between them, this quiet, this dark, this faithful, generous rest. Your breathing is slower now. The room is the same room. The dark is the same dark. But something has shifted. Some small internal adjustment the body makes on its own, without being asked. The transition is already happening. You do not need to hurry it. You do not need to chase sleep. Sleep is not something you do. It is something that arrives when you stop holding it away. And the holding away, the effort, the trying, is what keeps it at a distance. So let the effort go. Let the arms be heavy. Let the breath find its own length. Let the thoughts come and go without following any of them. They are just weather, passing through. None of them require anything from you tonight. Somewhere in you is the child who first fell asleep under a particular ceiling, who dreamed their first dream, who woke and wondered for the very first time where the night had taken them. That part of you still knows the way. It has made this crossing thousands of times, without effort, without guidance, simply because you are here, and the night is here, and rest is what comes between one day and the next. There is nothing you need to do, nothing to hold, nothing to figure out, nothing to carry any further tonight. The brain will do what it does. The body will do what it does. And you can simply be here. The mind is a mystery we live inside every moment of our lives. And tonight, we have walked a little way into it together. Through memory and its strange living beauty. Through the social wiring that links us to one another in ways we rarely see but always feel. Through the quiet, faithful intelligence of the body. Through the science that is always underneath everything, pointing towards something larger than itself. What lives inside you is extraordinary. Not because it is perfect, not because it always works the way we wish it would, but because it is alive, because it changes, because it reaches toward others, because it dreams, because in every moment, without announcement, without credit, it is still trying. The 86 billion neurons, the memories threaded through with feeling, the ancient recognition system that knows the people you love before you have consciously decided to look. The dreaming mind, forming its quiet questions right now in the deep architecture of sleep. All of it, every last part of it, is you. We carry so much more than we know, so much more capacity, so much more depth, so much that operates without our awareness, for our benefit, every moment of every day. The mind is not a problem to be solved. It is not a system to be optimized. It is a mystery to be lived. A landscape that reveals itself slowly over the course of a life to those who are willing to look at it with curiosity and with care. You have been looking tonight, and that looking, that willingness to wonder about what you are, how you work, what it means to be a conscious thing moving through a world full of other conscious things, is itself a form of tenderness, directed quietly inward, in the dark, where no one needs to see it but you. In the long history of human beings lying awake and wondering what they are, you are part of a very long conversation, one that began around fires, in the dark, long before there were words for most of what people felt. One that continues tonight, in laboratories, in libraries, and in the quiet of ordinary rooms just like this one. You do not need to resolve the conversation. You simply need to rest inside it. Tomorrow, the questions will still be there. The mysteries will still be open. And so will you, ready to carry them further. But not tonight. Tonight is for something simpler, for the body's faithful, generous work, for the dreaming mind's private wandering, for the particular piece of a night that holds nothing more than what it is: quiet, dark, enough. Take that with you now, into the deep, not as a thought to hold, just as a knowing, the kind the body already carries. You are not separate from the wonder we have been exploring tonight. You are it. Every circuit and connection, every remembered face and felt emotion, every dream forming now, quietly, in the deep architecture of sleep. That is you. The science of the mind does not diminish its wonder. If anything, the closer we look, the more there is to marvel at. Every answered question reveals 3 more, waiting patiently in the dark. And that, in its own way, is one of the most comforting things about being human. We are not finished. The story is not concluded. There is always more depth, more possibility, more of what we have not yet imagined. You are part of that unfinished story. Carry that gently, not as pressure, not as a reminder of all that is still to do, just as a quiet knowing that you exist inside something much larger than any single day, that the mind you carry is one of the most extraordinary things the universe has managed to produce, and that it is yours, entirely, completely yours. Rest well, and good night.